Hello guys, I'm here today to talk to you about a very important topic that comes up all the time. So obviously running all these challenges that live like Louise, we get the frequent questions that come up all the time. And actually, you know, you gotta understand what's going on so you don't get stressed out over it. So can you lose fat but not lose weight? So there's a difference between fat loss and weight loss, right? A lot of people get confused by this. And they say 500 calorie deficit a day equals 1 pound of fat lost per week, right? That's pretty accurate. But that doesn't mean it's 1 pound of weight lost a week. Okay, a lot of your body is made up of water, 60%. So bear that in mind when we're talking about this. So welcome my trusty little graph here. So the first things first. So when we look at the daily weight, this is this green line, bit of a crazy line, up and down, happens in every weight loss journey, it's up and down. Then we've got the average weight, which is the red line going through it. This is like a weekly average, so it takes the weekly weights, averages it out, okay? And then we've got the purple line, which is fat mass, which is your fat basically. And then you've got muscle mass, which is the bottom one here, okay? What happens is, for example, this is day one of your journey here, and this is here, okay? So that's day one, okay? Right, when it comes to say here, we go across. So we've got this part here. Say that is, 1 pound. So in the first week, you've actually dropped 1 pound of fat, right? So your fat mass has gone down, but your total weight has actually crept up, right? So what's actually happening here? Well, all that's happening is from there to there, you've actually holding on to a bit more water. Even though you've lost a pound of fat, you've basically put the pound of water on. So really your weight is kind of not changed. And also what can happen with newbies and beginners, I'm not saying it happens in the first week, but you can see a slight uptake in muscle mass when you first start a strength training program or a proper weight-based, resistance-based program. Because a lot of women actually don't, a lot of them do a lot of cardio and running, they start doing weights for the first time and they see quite a big boost. And this is, we call it newbie gains in the industry. But let's look at, say, point here, right? And we go from there down to there. So there's a big drop, right? But that big drop doesn't mean there's a massive drop. Like the fat mass hasn't dropped from there to there, right? So it hasn't gone from there to there in fat mass. You've just, this part of the journey, there's basically a lot of water weight drops off, and it happens a lot. So people will hold, the weight will hold for a bit, the weight will hold. But the fats, you're still losing fat if you're sticking to your calorie deficit and no macros or whatever. It's kind of a consistent fat mass loss, 1 pound a week. But your total weight loss is kind of up and down. And then you'll have a cliff, boom, drop. But don't confuse that drop with a massive drop in fat mass, because that's not what actually happens. And your muscle mass, if you're in a deficit, it's pretty much going to stay the same. You might put a pound or two of muscle on over a good few months, but really in reality, if you're just the average person going to the gym to lose weight, you're not going to see much difference in your muscle mass, right? So the changes are basically, what you need to get your head around is, you're always losing fat mass if you're in a deficit of 500 calories a day. And we use a macros-based plan because, if you're going to do calorie only, you're not going to be tracking your protein intake, and maybe you're not eating enough fat in your diet, and maybe you want to know if you work better with a low carb diet or a higher carb diet. So you don't really get that information unless you track your macros, right? And it's just 3 numbers, it's very simple. So really, all you got to focus on is, am I actually following the plan properly? Am I tracking accurately? Am I getting a decent amount of steps in? Is my activity decent? Am I getting 6, 7, 8,000 steps a day in? Okay, good. Am I drinking enough water to make sure I'm getting a consistent intake of water every day? And if you are, don't even worry about your total weight for a bit. So your total weight is going to be crazy. Don't worry about it. Look at your weekly averages over time and I'll tell you a better story. So someone at this point here will say, they weigh at this point 150 pounds. And then they just take that weight and they say, oh my God. So that there's an uptick here there's basically a water intake, water retention uptake. And they'll say at that point, they'll go, oh my God, I've put on loads of fat in a few days. But actually over the week, you see a drop. So when you look at the average weight of the week, you're down 0.5. But if you're only taking 2 data points, and one's a low weigh-in and one's a high weigh-in, you think you put 2 pounds on, but actually you've lost 0.5 in total over the average. But again, your fat mass is coming down on a consistent, pretty much a consistent pace. So that's why we actually ask you to take daily weigh-ins, just because you can get the weekly averages and it actually gives you a bit more of an accurate look at how things are going, as opposed to taking a data point on a low and a data point on a high and then judging your entire program on just 2 sets of data points. When actually, you know, if you want to become the scientist of your own life, you're going to want to collect as much data as possible, as long as it's not impacting your mental health in a negative way. So that's it. Hopefully that clears things up.